And these are examples of crops that we grow in Zambia and the livestock.
Look at our geographic expression.
Good afternoon, class. And these are examples of crops that we grow in Zambia and the livestock.
Look at our geographic expression.
Good afternoon, class. My name is Miss Goma, teaching you Agriculture Science Grade 8. Okay, so today's topic is on crop production. So before we go any further to start with crop production, let us do a recap in the previous lesson that we had on Tuesday. I gave you an exercise to write, so we can revise from the exercise that I gave you, okay? So the first question was define soil profile. Define soil profile. We define soil profile as a vertical section taken from the top to the parent rocks showing different layers known as horizons, okay? Then the second question was identify different soil layers, which was topsoil, subsoil, and parent rock, okay? The third question was explain the importance of the top and the subsoil. And the importance was 1, it provides us with nutrients. 2, it provides us with microorganisms that help in breaking down humus. Apart from that, we also talked about the factors that are involved in soil formation. We also talked about the factors that are involved in soil formation. And these factors were 1, wind. 2, water. 3, living organisms. 4, air. Okay, so after we talked about that, we also talked about the different types of soil. We also talked about the different types of soil where we had sand, silt, clay, and loam. And we said loam is the best soil where we can grow crops in. So today's topic is a new topic which is on crop production. Before we go any further, we need to define what crop production is. We need to define what crop production is, okay? So what is crop production? Crop production is a branch of agriculture that deals with the growing of crops. It's a branch of agriculture that deals with the growing of crops. So we're also supposed to define what a crop is. We're also supposed to define what a crop is. What is a crop? What comes in your head when you hear a crop? Okay, so a crop is a plant that can be grown. After it has been grown, it can be harvested. After we harvest a crop, it can either be eaten or sold. Okay, so I have a definition of crop production here on the board. I also have a definition of a crop on the board. So today's lesson, we're supposed to identify different vegetable groups and their examples. Apart from identify different vegetable groups and their examples, we're also supposed to explain the factors that makes a site suitable for growing these vegetables. Apart from that, we're supposed to draw a plan that shows how vegetables are grown. Apart from that, we're also supposed to know the importance of this vegetable plan. Okay, so after defining what crop production is, and after defining what a crop is, with me here on the chart, I have vegetable groups and examples. With me here on the chart, I have vegetable groups and their examples. The first vegetable group I have is leafy vegetables. The first vegetable group I have is leafy vegetables. Okay, so what are the examples of these leafy vegetables? What are the examples of these leafy vegetables? The examples are rape, cabbage, lettuce, spinach. Okay, so apart from having them on the chart, I have them with me in person. I have an example of leafy vegetable, which is cabbage. Cabbage is an example of leafy vegetables. Cabbage is an example of leafy vegetables. Another example of leafy vegetables, I have lettuce. Another example of leafy vegetables, I have lettuce. Lettuce is an example of leafy vegetables. Other examples of leafy vegetables with me here, I have rape. Other examples of leafy vegetables with me here, I have rape. Rape is an example of leafy vegetables. Apart from rape, I also have Chinese cabbage. Apart from rape, I also have Chinese cabbage. Chinese cabbage is an example of leafy vegetables. Okay, so all these vegetables that I've just mentioned, the cabbage, the lettuce, the rape, and the Chinese are examples of leafy vegetables. Okay, we go to our second type of vegetable. We go to our second type of vegetable group. Our second type of vegetable group is rooty vegetables. Our second type of vegetables is rooty vegetables. What are the examples of rooty vegetables? What are the examples of rooty vegetables? Okay, so I have carrots are examples of rooty vegetables. Apart from carrots, I also have beetroots. Beetroots are also examples of rooty vegetables. Apart from beetroots, we also have radish. We also have radish. So examples of rooty vegetables are carrots, beetroots, and radish. So with me here, I have carrots. I have carrots. So these are carrots. These are carrots. So these carrots are examples of rooty vegetables. Apart from carrots, we have radish and beetroots. Okay. So we're going to go on the third group of vegetables. We're going to go on the third group of vegetables. The third group of vegetables I have is legume vegetables. The third group I have for vegetables is legume vegetables. What are examples of legume vegetables? What are examples of legume vegetables? I have French beans. French beans is an example of legume vegetables. Apart from fresh beans, I also have beans, which is an example of legume vegetables. Apart from beans, I also have green beans, which is also an example of legume vegetables. Okay? So with me here, I have beans. With me here, I have beans. Beans is an example of a legume vegetable. Beans is an example of a legume vegetable. Apart from having beans with me here, I have green beans. I have green beans with me here. I have green beans. Green beans is also an example of legume vegetables. Green beans is also an example of legume vegetables. Okay, are you with me? Are you with me? Okay, let's go to the fourth vegetable group. Let's go to the fourth vegetable group. And my fourth vegetable group is cucurbit. My fourth vegetable group is cucurbit vegetables. What do you find under cucurbit vegetables? What do you find under cucurbit vegetables? Okay, so an example is cucumber. An example of a cucurbit vegetable is cucumber. Okay, so cucumber is an example of cucurbit vegetable. Another example of cucurbit vegetable is baby mallow. Another example of cucurbit vegetable is baby mallow. Okay, so I have a cucumber with me here. I have cucumbers with me here. So these cucumbers fall under cucurbit vegetables. The cucumbers that you're seeing with me, they fall under cucurbit vegetables. Okay, so let's move to the fifth vegetable. Let's move to the fifth vegetable. Let's move to the fifth vegetable. Okay, so the fifth vegetable group that I have here with me is solanaceous vegetables. Solanaceous vegetables. Solanaceous vegetable, this is the fifth group of vegetable that I have with me. And examples of solanaceous vegetables, one, it's tomatoes. One, it's tomatoes. Apart from tomatoes, we have eggplants. Apart from eggplants, we have Irish potatoes. So I have mentioned about tomatoes is an example of solanaceous vegetables. Eggplants is an example of solanaceous vegetables. We also have Irish potatoes. So with me here, I have examples of solanaceous vegetables, which are tomatoes. Tomatoes are examples of solanaceous vegetables. So these are tomatoes. Apart from tomatoes, I have an Irish potato. An Irish potato, it is an example of solanaceous vegetables. Are we together? Hope we're moving together. Okay. The fifth vegetable group I have with me, is miscellaneous vegetables. Why are they called miscellaneous vegetables? They are called miscellaneous vegetables because they do not fall in any kind of group. They are on their own. They are called miscellaneous vegetables because they do not fall in any kind of group. They are standing on their own. So examples I have with me is onion. Onion is an example of miscellaneous vegetables. Apart from onion, I also have garlic. Garlic is also an example of miscellaneous vegetables. Okay, so I have onion with me here. It can either be a bulb onion or it can either be spring onion. Are we together? It can either be a bulb onion or it can either be spring onion. They all fall under miscellaneous vegetables. Are we together? So after identifying these vegetable groups, but why do we grow these vegetables? The question should come in and say, why do we grow these vegetables? Anyone with an answer? Why do you grow these vegetables in the garden? Why are they grown? Why do you think it is important to grow such vegetables? Okay, so it is important to grow these kinds of vegetables that fall in different groups because they provide us with vitamin C. Because they provide us with what? Vitamin C. And vitamin C is important in our bodies to fight diseases. And vitamin C is important in our bodies to do what? To fight diseases. So that's the reason why we grow these vegetables, and every meal that we have at home, these vegetables are included. So that we do not fall ill anyhow, we do not fall sick anyhow, because we are being protected against diseases because of these vegetables that you are seeing. Okay, so after identifying these different groups of these vegetables, and we've given, at least in each group, we've given examples of these vegetables. But what factors will make a site suitable for growing these vegetables? Before you grow these vegetables, there are factors that you need to follow. Before you grow these vegetables, you're seeing here with me, there are factors that you need to follow. So what are these factors that will make a site for growing vegetables? Okay, so let's look at the factors that will make a site suitable for growing vegetables. Hope you are with me. Hope you are with me. Okay, so factors that makes a site suitable for growing vegetables. What are these factors that will make a site suitable for growing vegetables? Okay, the first factor is land level. The first factor is land level. Land level is the first factor. So what happens under land level? What happens under land level? Okay, so the land should be leveled. The land should be leveled, and what I mean is that the land should be flat. The land should be flat to conserve water and soil. The first point is that the land should be flat. Should be flat to conserve water and soil. That's the first point under land level. Apart from a land being flat, also to prevent soil erosion. To prevent soil erosion. Okay, so what should come in your mind is, what is soil erosion? What is soil erosion? I remember in grade 6, 7, we learned what soil erosion. So we're saying the two factors that fall under land level is, one, the land should be flat to conserve the water and the soil. Apart from that, to also prevent soil erosion. So what is soil erosion? What is soil erosion? Okay, so soil erosion can be defined to say soil erosion, this is a removal of the topsoil either by wind or water. So soil erosion, this is a removal of the topsoil either by wind or water. Okay, so that is the first factor that makes a site suitable for growing vegetables. Can we go to the second factor? Can we go to the second factor? Our second factor is the source of water. Our second factor is source of water. Okay, so our second point, or a second factor that we have there that makes a site suitable for growing vegetables is source of water. What happens under source of water? What do we mean when you say source of water? Okay, so before you grow vegetables, you have to consider if the area you're growing vegetables, there's water. Because we know crops cannot grow without water. Seeds cannot germinate without water. Are we together? Okay, so source of water, we mean the place should have enough water to water our gardens or to water our crops, so that the seeds should germinate and the crops should grow healthy. Are we together? You've seen how healthy these crops are looking. Have you seen how healthy these crops are looking? It's because the area where we grew these vegetables, there's a source of water. There's too much water that we water our vegetables every day, and our vegetables are grown and they look healthy like this. Okay, so the second factor is source of water. So for vegetables to grow, So for vegetables to grow, it needs water. Apart from water, for them to look healthy the way they are looking, they also require water. So let's make sure wherever we grow vegetables, the gardens where we grow our vegetables, there should be enough water. Are we together? Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, we move on to the third factor. We move on to the third factor. My third factor is away from big trees. My third factor is away from big trees. Okay. So what is happening away from big trees? Why are we saying we should grow these beautiful vegetables away from big trees? Why are we saying we should grow these vegetables away from big trees? Okay. One, you bear with me that when you are growing vegetables, and when vegetables are growing and the area where you have grown these vegetables, the trees, definitely trees are going to provide shade. Trees will provide shade to the crops that you've grown, and we know that for crops to grow, they require what? Sunlight. For crops to grow, they require sunlight. If there is no sunlight, meaning photosynthesis will not take place. If there is no sunlight, meaning photosynthesis will not take place. So what is this photosynthesis? What is this photosynthesis? Okay. So photosynthesis, this is a process by which plants make their own food. Photosynthesis, this is a process by which plants make their own food. And for plants to make their own food, they require what? Sunlight. For plants to make their own food, they require what? Sunlight. Okay, so we're saying we should grow our vegetables away from big trees so that the trees do not provide shade on the crops that we've grown. If there's shade on the crops that we've grown, definitely the crops will not make their own food by the process called photosynthesis. Are we together? So away from big trees so that there's no shade provided to the crops. So crops need sunlight for growth and to make their own food. For growth and to make their own food. Their own food. Another point that falls on the point of away from big trees, we know that trees, for them to grow, they also need water, they also need nutrients, they also need space. Okay, so the reason why we're not going to grow crops where trees are, it is to avoid trees and crops fighting for nutrients, fighting for water, and fighting for space. Are we together? Another point, to avoid trees and crops fighting for nutrients, water, and space. Okay, so the two factors that fall under away from big trees. For crops to grow, they need sunlight and to make their food. And also for crops to grow healthy, like you've seen them here, they need enough water, enough sunlight, enough space, and enough nutrients. Are we together? Okay, so let's go to our fourth factor. Let us go to our fourth factor. And our fourth factor is soil fertility. Our fourth factor is soil fertility. Okay, so what comes in your head when you hear soil fertility? What comes in your head when you hear soil fertility? Okay, in the previous topic, in the previous revision that we had, we talked about the best soil that we can use to grow these beautiful crops that you're seeing here. We talked about the type of soil that we need for growing crops like this, okay? So what you should know that when you want to grow vegetables, you need to check what kind of soil is this? What type of soil is this, okay? We mentioned in the previous lesson that the best soil that you can grow vegetables in or any other kind of crop is loam. We mentioned that the best soil that you can grow crops in or any other, it can either be cereals, which is maize, wheat. The best soil that you can use is loam soil. And we defined or we saw the characteristics of loam soil. We said loam soil is dark in color, it has got high content of humus, it is rich in nutrients, okay? So when we talk about this point of soil fertility, we're talking about the soil should be fertile enough to grow crops. We're talking about the soil should be fertile enough to grow crops, okay? So under soil fertility, the soil should be fertile enough to grow crops so that when crops are grown, they are grown healthy and they'll produce higher yields to us farmers. And we'll be able to sell those crops that are looking green. No one would want to buy crops that are dry. If you go at the market, I'll give an example. You are sent by your mother or your father or your guardians that you're staying with at home. They tell you, Nancy, can you go and buy vegetables? Then you go to the market. Definitely in the market you find different people selling different kinds of crops, but you're sent to buy cabbage. You're sent to buy cabbage. Then you go in the market, you find cabbage that looks dry. You find tomatoes that don't look big enough. As you go there, you're going to follow quality. Quality, how does a crop look like? You need a crop that would look green. As you can see, this lettuce is green enough. If you find it at the market, definitely you go for a crop that looks like this. You will not go for a crop that is dry, okay? So for these crops to grow like this, we need, the soil should be fertile. The soil should be fertile enough for crops to grow healthy and produce higher yields, okay? So under soil fertility, the soil should be very fertile. Should be very fertile to produce higher yields. Okay, so let's go on our fifth factor. Let's go on our fifth factor. The fifth factor is on the soil depth. The fifth factor is on the soil depth. Soil depth. This is the fifth factor with me here. What happens under the soil depth? What happens under the soil depth? Okay, so the soils should be deep enough. The soils should be deep enough. Why am I saying the soils should be deep enough? Okay, so that the water that we put in the ground, the nutrients that we put in the ground, they're able to last for so long. They're able to last for so long so that they're distributed to all parts of the plants. They'll start coming from the roots. From the roots, they'll go to the stems. From the stems, they'll go to the leaves. That's why we need soil depth. So the soil should be deep enough to keep water for so long in the ground, to keep the nutrients that we put for so long in the ground, so that they're able to be distributed to all parts of the plant. We've talked about them moving from the roots to the stems, from the stems to the leaves, okay? So the soil should be deep enough so that water and nutrients last. Okay, so let's go to the sixth factor. Any questions before I move to the sixth factor. Any questions before I move to the sixth factor? Any questions? Okay, so the sixth factor, fenced. The sixth factor is fenced. What do I mean when I say the garden should be fenced? What do I mean when I say the garden should be fenced? Okay, I'll give an example. We have a garden at home. Apart from having a garden, we also keep livestock. Okay, I'll give example of commercial farmers. I'll give examples of commercial farmers. So commercial farmers, these are farmers that grow crops and keep livestock only for selling. The crops that they grow, they're only for selling. They do not have the aim of eating any crop that they grow. Are we together? When we go back in term 1, we learned on different types of farmers. When we go back to grade 8 work in term 1, we learned on 3 different types of farmers. We have subsistence farmers, we have improved farmers, and we have commercial farmers. Okay, and we said subsistence farmers, these are farmers that grow crops only for eating, mainly for eating at home. And these kind of farmers, they do not have big lands to grow their crops. It can just be a backyard garden where they just grow vegetables behind their house, and when they grow those vegetables behind their house, those vegetables they grow, they're only used for eating. Improved farmers, they can either sell the vegetables and they can also eat. Commercial farmers, these are farmers that grow their vegetables and keep livestock on the large piece of land, and then they do not have the aim of eating any vegetable that they grow. Okay, so when I talk about the garden should be fenced, I'm talking about those farmers that keep livestock and grow vegetables, and the kind of farming is called mixed farming. It is called what? Mixed farming. Okay, so mixed farming, this is the growing of crops and keeping of livestock on the same piece of land. So I'll give an example. This is my garden. This is my garden with me. I've grown vegetables here. Then let me say a minute, 2 minutes away, I'm keeping livestock. I'm keeping livestock somewhere there like cows, goats, and etc. Then the livestock who come in my garden, if my garden is not fenced, my vegetables will be eaten up. Okay? So that's why we're saying the garden should be fenced. It is important to fence the garden because you avoid livestock to come and eat your crops. When your crops are eaten, it is a loss to you as a farmer. Are we together? Okay, so we're saying the garden should be fenced to avoid livestock eating the vegetables. And here an example of farming I've talked about is mixed farming, where you're growing crops aside and you're keeping livestock on the other end. Are we together? Okay, so these are the factors that makes a site suitable for growing vegetables. When you're surveying on a land and you find these factors on the land, meaning you can grow any kind of vegetable that you want to grow, and your vegetables will be very healthy enough to be eaten and sold outside to the market or other countries. Okay. So after learning these factors, how do you plan? How do you plan a simple vegetable growing? How do you plan a simple vegetable growing? After knowing the factors, that the land should be leveled, source of water, away from big trees, soil depth, fertility, and the garden should be fenced. Okay? So how do you plan? How do you draw a simple plan for vegetable growing? How do you draw a simple plan for vegetable growing? Okay? So before you grow vegetables, there's a plan that is supposed to come in your head. Before you grow vegetables, there's a plan that's supposed to come in your head. You don't just grow vegetables anyhow. So after knowing the factors that will make a site suitable for growing vegetables, there's a plan that you need to make. Okay? So before you make that plan, or before you start growing vegetables, that plan should be on the paper. That plan should be where? On the paper. Okay? So after you've made a plan on the plain paper or any paper, a plan has been made. So the plan can only be made after seeing the factors of the garden that you have. So after that plan has been made, now you can start thinking of, you clear the land, you cut down trees because we do not need trees in that field. You cut down the trees, you remove grass, you cultivate the land in readiness to grow these vegetables. And after you cultivate the land, you make seed beds. You make what? Seed beds to grow your vegetables. Okay? So with me here, we'll draw a simple vegetable plan. Simple vegetable plan. Okay, so what do you think will be in this plan? What do you think will be in this plan? Because we've learned different kinds of vegetable groups. Apart from learning the different kinds of vegetable groups, we've also given examples to each group. We've also given examples to each group. So what plan will be drawn here? Anyone to try? What plan will be drawn here? What do you think is involved in this simple plan for vegetables? Any ideas? Any ideas? Okay. So I'm drawing a plan for vegetables here. Drawing a plan for vegetables. Okay. This is my plan. I want to grow vegetables in Tumbi, where I stay. I want to grow vegetables in Tumbi at our backyard garden. Okay. So the first group of vegetable I'm going to put there is leafy vegetables. Leafy vegetables. Examples of leafy vegetables. Examples of leafy vegetables. Okay, so examples of leafy vegetables, we gave cabbage is an example of leafy vegetables. Cabbage and rape. So this is what I'll grow first in my garden. I'll grow this. I'll start with leafy vegetables, which is cabbage or rape. I'll grow this. I can either grow cabbage first. After that, the next crop that I'll grow. So leafy vegetables is the first vegetable you grow. So an example I've given is cabbage or rape. So you can either grow cabbage, rape, or lettuce, or Chinese, any of them. Then the next vegetable I'll put in this plan is legume. The next vegetable I'll put is legume. Okay, so the next vegetable after I grow the cabbage or after I grow the leafy vegetables, I'll put a legume vegetable. Okay, and examples of legume vegetables? Examples of legume vegetables. Class? Okay, so we have beans is an example of legume vegetables, or green beans. So with me here, I have two examples of legume vegetables which we learned when we just started crop production. Okay? So I've given an example of beans or green beans. So in leafy vegetables, we grow cabbage. After cabbage has been grown, as we harvest or remove cabbage from the field, we grow legume vegetables. After we grow legume vegetables, it can either be beans, it can either be French beans, it can either be green beans, it can either be groundnuts. Groundnuts are also examples of legume vegetables. Okay. Then after we've grown legumes and they're ready, we harvest them. The next crop or the next vegetable we put is rooty vegetables. Okay. So that is our third crop that we grow after we've done what? We've harvested legumes. Okay. So under rooty vegetables, we talked about carrots. We talked about carrots or beetroots. Okay, so after we've harvested legume vegetables, let me say we've grown beans. Beans is ready. We harvest beans. We put rooty vegetables. After harvesting this vegetable, we grow what? Rooty vegetables. And under rooty vegetables, we've given an example of carrots or beetroots. You can either grow either carrots or beetroots. After this, after we harvest carrots, we can grow solanaceous vegetables. And examples of solanaceous vegetables, we gave tomatoes. We gave examples. Tomatoes is an example of solanaceous vegetables. Tomatoes. If you don't want to grow tomatoes, you can also grow Irish potato. Irish potato. Okay. So after you've grown solanaceous vegetables, after they're ready, we're going to harvest them. Then you start again with leafy vegetables. Then we start again with the leafy vegetables. Okay. So why do you think this plan, we are not growing vegetables like in the first plan, we've grown cabbage. In the second plan, we come and grow rape. In the third plan, we come and grow Chinese. In the fourth plan, we come and grow lettuce. Why do you think we're not rotating the crops that are falling in the same group? Why do you think we're not rotating the same crops that fall in the same group? Okay, so we call this as a vegetable rotation. We call this vegetable rotation. In other ways, it can be called crop rotation. In other ways, it can be called crop rotation. Okay, so what is crop rotation? What is crop rotation? Because you cannot be rotating crops minus knowing what is happening, right? Or we cannot say this plant I have grown here is vegetable rotation or crop rotation. So we need to know what crop rotation is. What is crop rotation? Can anyone define crop rotation for me? Can anyone define crop rotation for me? Okay, so crop rotation, this is a growing of different kinds of crops in a sequence way. This is a growing of different kinds of crops in a sequence way. Are we together? And this growing is done where? On the same piece of land. It's done on the same piece of land. Are we together? So we're defining crop rotation to be the growing of different kinds of crops in a sequence way on the same piece of land. Okay, so what we have done with these different kinds of vegetable groups and their examples is that we've rotated each vegetable group. If you've come to notice, I have not put cabbage here, I put rape there, I put Chinese there, I put lettuce there. Why? Because they fall in the same group. So crop rotation is the growing of different kinds of vegetables. Are we together? In a sequence way on the same piece of land. And what I mean, I already gave an example to say if I've grown cabbage in like a backyard garden, the next time I will not grow any vegetable that falls under leafy vegetables. I'll grow any vegetables that fall under legume vegetables. After I harvest my legumes or my beans or groundnuts, I will grow rooty vegetables. Vegetables that do not fall in the same group. But why are we doing so? Because if we want, you can even make a plan to say, okay, let's say, let me put cabbage first. After I put cabbage, I have no problem to come and put rep. After I put rep, lettuce, etc. It is very wrong. You need to rotate the crops that fall in different groups or categories. Are we together? Okay, so now what is the importance of this vegetable rotation? Why do you think it is important to rotate vegetables like what I've done in my plan? So we'll talk about the importance of vegetable rotation. Rotation. Okay. The first importance is that it improves the soil structure. The first importance that I have there is that it improves the soil structure. How does it improve the soil structure? How does it improve the soil structure? Okay. In the previous lesson, we learned about humus. In the previous lesson, we learned about humus. And we defined humus to be plant remains. And we defined humus to be plant remains. Okay. So for example, I have harvested my cabbage, my lettuce, I've harvested beans, my cucumber, different kinds of vegetables that I have here. Okay, believe me, when you're harvesting those vegetables, sometimes you have leaves drying out and falling down in the garden. When the leaves dry up and fall in the garden, it tends to form humus. Okay, so this is why I'm saying it improves the soil structure, because of different kinds of remains, different kinds of plant remains that have remained in the garden. The soil is done what? It's being improved. Good. Okay? My second point, it prevents diseases and pests. What do I mean when I say it prevents diseases and pests? What do I mean when I say it prevents diseases and pests? Okay. Let's go back to our simple vegetable plan. Let's go back to our simple vegetable plan. Okay. Believe me, the diseases that attack cabbage, they're not diseases that will attack beans. The disease that attacks beans is not the disease that will attack carrots. The disease that will attack carrots is not the disease that will attack Irish potatoes. I'll give an example of Irish potatoes. Okay, so the disease that attacks Irish potato is called potato blight. The disease that attacks Irish potato is called what? Potato blight. So this potato blight will not attack groundnuts. This potato blight disease will not attack what? Groundnuts. Because the disease that attacks groundnuts is called groundnut rosette. The disease that attacks groundnuts is called what? Groundnut rosette. So you concur with me and know that the disease that attacks groundnuts is not a disease that will attack Irish potatoes. That's why we keep on rotating different kinds of vegetables that fall in different kinds of groups. Are we together? Okay. Then my third point, legume. Legume vegetables fix back nitrogen. Okay, so we're saying legume vegetables fix back nitrogen. And examples of legume vegetables I gave is green beans. Green beans is an example of legume vegetables. Apart from green beans, with me here, I have beans, the beans we eat in our homes. I have beans, it's also an example of legumes. Apart from beans, we've talked about groundnuts. Apart from groundnuts, we've talked about French beans. Okay, so we're saying legume vegetables fix back nitrogen. But how? But how is nitrogen fixed back in the soil? Okay, so nitrogen is fixed back in the soil with the help of rhizobium bacteria. And this rhizobium bacteria is found in the root nodules. And these root nodules are found at the end of the roots. Are we together? So that's how legume fixes back nitrogen. Okay, any questions? For today we'll end here. Do you have any questions? As you're asking questions, I have homework for you, being a Friday today. I have homework for you, being a Friday today. Okay, keep the questions coming. You can text if you have any questions. You can text if you have got any questions. So get your books and write the homework down. Okay, so the first question we have is identify vegetable groups. The second question we have is explain factors that make a site suitable for growing vegetables. The last one, draw a simple plan for vegetable growing. Okay, so I only have 3 questions for you. It's your homework, so you can do your homework from home. Okay, so there's a question I have here. Someone is saying, I didn't get you the definition of crop production. Someone is saying, I didn't get the definition of crop production. Okay, so crop production, this is a branch of agriculture that deals with the growing of crops. It's a branch of agriculture that deals with the growing of crops. Okay, any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so we'll end here. The next time we meet, we shall continue from where we've ended, and we'll talk about the types of seed beds that we have here in Zambia. We'll talk about the types of seed beds that we have here in Zambia. Thank you.